So after this forum, we're going to have, the last is the mayoral candidates, okay? So at this time, we're going to kind of switch. We're going to give you a female voice now.
All right, candidates, we'd like to give you 2 minutes to introduce yourselves and what race it is you're participating in, because we kind of mixed up a little bit up there. I would like to start on the east side of the table with our female candidate. 2 minutes. Not that we don't already know you, but 2 minutes.
Hi, aloha. My name is Lynn Decoy. I am your state representative for District 13, which entails the island of Moloka'i, East Maui, Lanai, Kaho'olawe, and Moloka'i. I am proud and honored to be representing all of you here today. The reason why I'm running is because I believe we have never been truly inclusive of the rural areas such as Moloka'i and Lanai and Hana. I believe I bring to the table experience. I bring a networking of relationships that we have built throughout the state legislature. We work very well with our county council. And the reason why truly running is because I look at the next generation of my kids and my grandchild and how we would like to see a better future for tomorrow. I'm proud to say that my husband is here with me today, as well as my son and my family, and I'm proud to have them here in support. And you know, I'm happy at doing what I do. I take pride in what I do. I believe part of being a state representative is always being honest and truthful, and making sure that when we look at information that's put before us, that the information is true and factual. And I believe that when everything is said and done, and whether or not you agree or disagree, that the truth is before you and before us, and those decisions are made based on the facts before us. Whether or not you like it, I said that is what we look at first and foremost with respect to who we are, the culture, the environment, and all of you here. And I'm proud to just be here with many of you from Moloka'i, and of course, mahalo for the Ahupua'a and Vote to Rise for having this, because we've never had the opportunity to bring the candidates from the neighbor islands to also come here and have a voice. So mahalo. Thank you.
Aloha Moloka'i. Aloha. Thank you to the organizers for putting this together. My name is Kalani English. I'm the current senator for the 7th Senatorial District. This is the largest district in all of Hawaii. It encompasses the island of Moloka'i, Lanai, Kaho'olawe, and then East Maui. Everything from the airport going east in Maui is in this district. It's a very difficult district to represent because it's so diverse. I live in Hana, and I've been in the Senate since 2000. So this will be my 7th term in the Senate. I'm the 3rd highest ranking senator right now. I'm the majority leader of the Senate. You know, one of the things I want to share with you, well, there's 2 things. The first is that today, Representative Decoy and I were down in Kalaupapa, and one of the messages that the Patients Council have asked us to convey out to everyone is, you know, we have people going there, not really from topside, but from other islands, coming in and taking their salt. So they asked people to please respect their system down there and respect the way that they have been managing their resources. So we said that we would spread that message for them. The second thing is that I went back and looked at from 2000 until the present, you know, we've put about $200 million worth of capital improvement projects into Moloka'i. So that's the work that I've done with Representative Kaho'ohala, Representative Carroll, and now Representative Tikoi. So I ask for your continued support, and I look forward to your questions. Mahalo.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Michael Kilomal Tengan, and I'm running for the State Senate District 7, as Talani had said, representing the rural areas of Maui, and that's upcountry in East Maui, Moloka'i, Lanai, and Kapololave. I was raised by Maui. Not just raised on Maui, I was raised by Maui. My community helped me to grow and to be the person that I am. Growing up in a single-parent home, we all had a part to play in the house. My brother took out the trash, I walked the dogs. We all had responsibilities in Kuleana. And so flashing forward, I went away from Maui for schooling, went to Kamehameha, went to the mainland for college. When I finally came back to Maui, I had realized that things had changed. A lot had changed. The very face of the place that had raised me had changed. So with a background in terms of that connection to Maui, being raised in Waiheku, out in Happy Valley, and then in Hawaiian homes, what I bring to each and every moment is the kuleana that I carry and the responsibilities that I shoulder. But that's not just for me, that's for all of us. My background in health, community health and wellness, so my background is a nonprofit organization, a community organization, and figuring out how we can all best thrive. For some of us, it's a matter of being able to live a higher quality of life. For others, it's a matter of connection to each other. And so I humbly ask for your support in terms of being able to move Maui forward. Very, very thankful for an opportunity to speak here tonight. So thank you for those who have organized, all of you who are here, because much like in any household, we're all part of the process, and we're all going to be part of the solutions as well. So I look forward to your questions, and mahalo.
Aloha Moloka'i. Aloha. My name is John Bo English. I'm from Hana, Maui, born and raised. I grew up in a fish pond. We own and operate a fish pond. I grew up in the shadows of my parents, who are community activists. As growing up in the shadows of my parents, you kind of watch a lot of things, and it becomes a part of who you are as a person. And so a lot of the work that I did growing up, not growing up, but even after joining the military, going into as an advocate for children with learning disabilities, as a teacher at the Hawaii Correctional Facility, as well as a teacher at the Youth Homeless Shelter in Waikiki. I did a lot of work that serviced what someone called the bottom of society. And that's the way sort of I've always felt like as community service, my parents being community service, I had to do the same thing. I run today because we see a lot of change going on in our society, in our communities, and I feel like I can best serve, and I can make good changes, and we can put in policies that are going to protect us, not just now, but also in the future. But I noticed I got 1 minute left, so I wanted to share this quick story with you. Back in April, it was one of those days where I'm doing paperwork all day at the house, and I hear this noise in the living room, so a smile came to my face because I thought that my cousins were over. And so I was going to take that opportunity, take a break, and just to see what they're doing. And when I walked into the living room, it wasn't my cousins, but it was actually the Moloka'i girls softball team. Right? And I'm like, whoa. And they're like, oh, hi, Uncle. Sorry, we're just using your shower. No problem. I went back to work. That was back in April. Only recently I found out, I even cared why they were there. And because I asked. I guess the school's hot water ran out or it wasn't working. So. But I share that story because I wanted to share with you the relationship between Hana and Moloka'i. And we're family. We all have, we live a similar lifestyle. I don't know, but I understand and I can sense what's going on. So, aloha and mahalo.
Aloha. So it's always a privilege and a treat and an opportunity when I come over here to Moloka'i. My name is Nikhil Ananda, and I'm seeking the State House of Representatives, 13th District. You've heard where it covers. East Maui, North Shore Maui, which is left off a lot, and that's where I live in Huelo. Moloka'i, Lanai, Ka'aolave, Moloka'i. There's no way that I know as much of what's going on in Moloka'i as the current state rep, and this is a great time to thank both Kalani for his many years of service and for Lynn for her years of service. And when she was appointed, that was a challenge, so I thank both of them. And I'm not standing against somebody. In fact, I don't know. I will be in the November general election. There's 2 people vying in the primary in 2 weeks, so I'm going to say I do not need your vote in the primary, but I do need it in the general election. And we need a change. We need someone really different. A quick story with me. I was not born in Maui County. 40 years ago, in traveling around the world, 50 countries, 5 continents, all 50 states, I came to Maui, fell in love with it. 32 years ago, I came to Maui. I've lived in this district for 30 years, which includes East Maui, North Shore Maui. That's where I live. I have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree. Like Kiani, I got admitted to law school. Different from Kiani, I decided to take a break from school and travel. And as a result of not going to law school, I visited Maui. I went to India. You can see my name's quite different, Nikhil Ananda. Hopefully the questions will be challenging. I love that opportunity. I only went to Lahaina after 3 years last week, so coming to Moloka'i, I can understand. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you guys very much for being here. And thank you for the organizers. Thank you.
Okay, so our first question will be for our Senate candidates. So that would be Kalani and Michael. With the cost of electricity for Moloka'i being one of the highest nationwide, what are your ideas to help alleviate electricity costs, and what are your thoughts on a co-op electric company? Kalamai, we'll start with Kalani.
Thank you. Very, very good question. I've been dealing with electrical issues, power issues for more than 25 years. When I was on the council, I remember doing the Moloka'i community plan, sitting for many hours in this room, working on things. This was still an issue back then. But a lot has changed. We have now created, things like solar. We have all these other technologies that are coming online, and one of the biggest changes is that battery storage systems are being perfected. But from the big picture view, Kauai is the most successful cooperative in the United States. And in fact, they have achieved, I think for 20 minutes at one point, 100% renewable energy for the island. And on an average, it's about 70%. So, they created their cooperative out of necessity after the hurricanes, right? The utility didn't want to reinvest the huge amounts it would take to put in that, so the community put it together. And they actually, each person that uses the electricity is a part owner. So it's a very different model, and it's being studied across the United States. I'm very close to it because the Senate President is from Kauai, and he used to be on their board, so I get an inside view of how it operates. And I think that that's a good option for us in Maui County, to look at how we can do a cooperative, which means all the users are the owners. There isn't a profit motivation, but it's motivation to provide the service to the people. So the short answer to this is that we have many different options to look at, and a lot of the technologies are maturing that we can now use them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. It's actually highly relevant. I was just having a conversation with a gentleman not merely 20 minutes ago about this same topic. We live under essentially a monopoly in terms of energy. doing so, we see it from energy with Miko, we see it in terms of flights with Hawaiian Airlines Inter-Island. And anytime we have a centralized source of power, whether we're talking about things in terms of a public utility or even in government, it sets a dangerous precedent. And so I would say that in terms of a cooperative model, I absolutely feel that that's the way forward. A more decentralized center of operations where the community is essentially owning the power. Much like Claudia mentioned, batteries, the technology is here. And to be able to then look at that concept of being able to localize these hubs of energy allows us to be more, not just more economical, making things more affordable and attainable for the everyday person, but it also gives us greater fortitude when it comes to disaster management. Last year there was a storm that went through the islands and knocked out power throughout the Maui County. Took varying times from 2 hours up into Kula to about a day and a half down in Haiku. And so part of the reason that happened is when we have a centralized source of energy, our communities are at risk. So, say for example, instead we look at then a co-op model where everyone benefits. It's a win-win for all of us. Then what we're able to do is then actually create something that allows our communities to take ownership. It allows then that power that we're looking at in terms of a centralized grid to be something that is more affordable, gives us more stability in our communities, and creates a greater degree of ownership for all of us. So I absolutely agree that cooperative model. Mahalo.
Okay, our next question is for our State House Representative candidates. And we'll start with Mr. Nikonanda and work our way down to Mr. English and then Mrs. Nikoi. Okay. It has to do with resource co-management. Hawaii's Constitution reaffirms and protects customary and traditional subsistence, cultural, and religious practices of our Native people. Over 25 years ago, Hawaii adopted HRS 188-22.6, the community-based subsistence fishing area law, to both uphold its constitutional mandate and to build co-governance and co-management partnerships with communities most dependent on and intimate with their resources, much like we are here on Moloka'i. It took 20 years to establish the first designation for Haina Kauai, and in less than 2 years, the initial studies are promising. The question is, Mr. Nikonanda, what is your personal policy on community-based co-governance and co-management of our natural resources?
Thank you. When I was here 2 years ago and I was going door to door, one of the main issues people talked about is that the fishing, your refrigerator, that's what 2 different people used that phrase, the refrigerator was being stolen, being overfished by people coming here. I'm not an expert on this, but I come from a background, well, I was the co-chair of the Green Party for years, I'm a Green candidate, and subsistence living, we have that on the North Shore. For years, a private company's been stealing the water from there. So we need, obviously, to work in coordination with local people. And I learned a lesson when I came here, just brief. I came here back in '92, first time standing for the county council. And I said, you know what, I think Moloka'i should be its own county. And a few people yelled back at me. And I got that when they came up to me and said, don't come to Moloka'i and tell us what to do. Now I find people that are agreeing with that position. But the most important thing for me is to listen. Some of you used to watch my TV show, Maui Talks TV, on Tuesday night, and that's what I learned. Talk if no one's going to talk. Otherwise, listen to the people. So I need to educate myself more about that. And my first reaction is, of course, there are people all along the North Shore of Maui, and I know here in Moloka'i, that is subsistent living, and they're not able to do it because here you have Moloka'i Ranch, Monsanto stealing the water, and over there we have EMI stealing the water. So on the fishing, I'm not a fisherman. But I would talk to the people that are involved with that. And they would share with me what is necessary. I'm educated, I would inform, I would do research, but I could have answered that really in 10 seconds, but we're giving 2 minutes, is that of course I would support this need for subsistence and support by, and we know that sometimes the state comes in and defends, and sometimes the state comes in and takes, and sometimes the county is up in front, and sometimes they're not. You guys know what's needed, and you would share with me, and we would work together in the legislature. Thank you very much.
So, we believe that, speaking on behalf of HANA, someone representing the place rising up into power and start making decisions for HANA is a recipe for disaster. I'm not going to do that to Moloka'i. If I'm a representative for Moloka'i, I need to have a relationship and hear the voices of all the people and make a, I have a feeling I know what this question is about, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite and tell you my support or I don't. I can tell you how I personally feel. For me, us, our natural resources, the refrigerator, there's nothing more important. And we need to put in policies, for me, put in policies today so that we don't create a bigger problem in the future, so that we can always provide, so that people can always eat. And, again, but this really gets back to Moloka'i and hearing the voice of the people. And for me, I think that's really the issue. What does the people want, and how do you get, how do you hear all of the people's voices? So I'm just going to throw out this idea, like we were talking about earlier. It's so difficult. We say we need community involvement. We need the people to get involved. And that's something we've been hearing about since I was a little kid, and we're still hearing the same thing. So what if we as a government, or as a department, or as a district created other ways to hear people's voices? For instance, what if on Facebook we had a friends and family of District 13 or Moloka'i, right? And we can state an issue, but nobody can comment on it. Now you can private message that group, and you can you support or you don't. Nobody else sees it, but we can keep a tally, we can get a more accurate, reading of what the people actually want. So for me, it's you know how I feel, but there's other ways. I don't know how you guys feel, and I think that is the important thing that should be asked and should be looking into. Mahalo.
So thank you for that question. So when it comes to a community base, I will always support a community base if the community supports it. And as we've seen, while resources have been taken, and while many have said that I'm trying to protect these resources, I think most of us really gotta look into a mirror. And while we say that we're trying to protect these resources, we cannot be the same people that rip in those resources. And that's truly what happens. You cannot, come out and say it's fenced off, because community base should be taken seriously when one ahupo'a shouldn't be speaking for another ahupo'a. And that we've always said this when it came to Ho'olua and Mana'i. You know, go hana ino the other side, and then go hana ino your side. So when you build that community base, you truly build the community base of the people. As your state representative, it's carrying one message of the people's voice. Not one community of 4 or one community of 10, not one meeting being held, being bullied and harassed. And yet, for myself as well as Senator English, it's gotten to the point where, while we believe in transparency and we believe that those meetings that should be held openly for the community, and with those that are fearful of speaking out because they've been threatened, that is not about community. That is not our culture. That is not how we were raised. We were raised to share those resources and to welcome everybody. And in regards to the taking of resources, DLNR's position is to enforce that. You have an existing policy in place and law that if you take and you're not taking the size of it or whatsoever, many of you in Ho'olua have families, even in Mana'i, families of 18 and 20. You damn right you get one voice at the table and that your voice is heard. And we allow that to happen, which is why even at the point of community base, we carry that message, we advocate for you, and then we legislate to make sure it's of the community and it's the broader of the community. And that's why I stand on community base. So mahalo for the question.
Okay, this next question is again for our senators, and this time we'll, Senate candidates, and this time we'll start with Mike in regards to education. Public charter schools, the disproportionate per pupil allocation awarded by the state to charter schools, even successful and proven charter schools, continues to be a concern across the state. What solutions do you propose to address charter school needs for a permanent facility and parity in funding?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Education is something that's very close, near and dear to my heart. We have 2 children, one who's 3 and one who's 4 months old. And so now being back on Maui and looking at education, we're just about to start with preschool for our first. These kind of questions are a big concern for me, because coming from a family of educators and seeing what the standard for Board of Education has been set for our keiki, I want to really start to look at those alternatives. And charter schools, having had ohana who've gone through, both my niece and my nephew have gone through both Punana and other schools on Oahu. There is a great need to redirect attention. And so in terms of looking at how we can best start to reallocate funds into our charter schools, I think it's actually tied to agriculture. And so one of the things that I'd like to see is tying our local agricultural systems directly to our local educational systems. And what that looks like is being able to provide foods that are grown locally to then also create an avenue that can create a new avenue for funding that can go into our charter schools as well. Using our charter schools as a way to start to explore different ways to have more integrated educational systems. In terms of being able to do that, then funding, as we look at that, then can come into place, and first and foremost in terms of infrastructure. Being able to bring funds into these areas that, particularly on our rural areas, more so from the city center, then allows us to essentially almost like a proof of concept in terms of a more integrated educational system for our keiki, starting young in terms of early childhood education, and then building up and outward. There was a program that we worked with when I was doing the nonprofit in Waimanalo that had a great system, and I'd like to see that from keiki until college. Mahalo.
Hala, can you repeat the question, please?
This is in regard to public charter schools. The disproportionate per pupil allocation awarded by the state to charter schools, even successful proven schools, continues to be a concern across the state. What solutions do you propose to address charter school needs for permanent facilities and parity in funding?
Okay, thank you. I think I understand the question. You know, we have, in Hawaii, we have a weighted student formula, a per pupil formula. I opposed that bill for many years because all of my schools in this district suffered from it. Hana, Lanai, Moloka'i. We used to what we call weighted allocations. It was directly to the schools for the schools to operate. When this weighted student formula went into law, our rural schools lost. This formula applies to the charter schools. They get a per pupil allocation. But you know, the whole concept of the charter school is that they were leaving the system and creating a new system. And when they first started, I used to work I was the chief of staff for Senator Chumley in the early 90s. He did the very first bill to create charter schools, 25 charter schools in Hawaii. And the idea was that the charter schools were leaving the system and they would create their own systems. At that time, it was their own infrastructure, their own buildings, their own systems. Fast forward to today, they've reintegrated back into the Department of Education system. They get a weighted student formula to operate, and they have to meet certain standards for the Department of Education. So I've introduced bills over the years to remove our schools from this system. I've introduced bills to amend the weighted student formula. I've introduced bills to, for the very remote schools in Hawaii, which would include Niihau, Na'alehu, to actually create a whole new system of funding for the whole schools. This would apply to the charter schools. So the short of it is that what I want to do is make sure that the schools get what they need to operate, just like any other school. Thank you.
Okay, this next question is for our House Rep candidates. And in the interest of time, this will actually be the last question for these candidates on stage now. We will actually start with John Bull first. Okay. Water. Water is important to Native Hawaiians. It's important to everyone. The state's obligation is to protect, control, and regulate the use of these resources is enshrined in the Constitution. Water can be hotly contested between corporate and community interests. Water can be hotly contested between corporate and community interests. Do you believe our current approach to freshwater resource management is working? How would you ensure a more balanced approach to water use throughout Hawaii between corporate and community needs?
Could you ask the last part of that question again?
Do you believe our current approach to freshwater resource management is working? And how would you ensure a more balanced approach to water use throughout Hawaii between corporate and community needs?
Thank you. No, it's not working. Not at all, actually. Water is the source, the root of all of our problems. Everything else is the effect, really. And if we can get the water situation under control, then we can control development. We can control so many different aspects and issues and concerns that we're faced today. If we can get the water under control, I don't want to come out negative and start making accusations about politicians and funded by developers that own water rights and all of it, that lease the water from the state. But I will say that I think we should have more of a community-based, like the communities or the ahapuas or the districts should be responsible for the streams, for the management of the freshwater streams and resources. Each ahapua is different, each district is different. And I think that their voice should, they should have a committee representing their areas. And I mean, that sounds like a very complicated situation, but at least we're not leaving it in the hands of corporations to determine our future, letting them control the water or have complete access to it. So just allowing us as a community or communities to be more involved and more of a voice in what happens with our waters, I think is the right thing to do. Mahalo.
Thank you for the question. I'll just start by saying water is life. As a Hawaiian homestead farmer, we've fought through many battles. We fought through battles with the ranch. We fought through battles with really trying to understand what the water issue is. One is Moloka'i has its own issues as a single source aquifer. You have East Maui, which has the East Maui water situation that has been going on. One size shoe doesn't fit all. And how you look at addressing this is with the Moloka'i irrigation system. You get the makeup of that board that is representative of those areas, and you allow it to have that voice. And you look at the Moloka'i irrigation system, and part of that system is 2/3 preference of water. What happens is that when we go to these meetings, there's not enough representation because people feel they don't want the time to be on voice. So we end up with putting anybody and everybody on that system, and then you have a hierarchy. You have seaworm and all these other areas to try to bring balance and continuity to the water issue. Several years ago, within our own farm, we were the interveners of water, of the protection of water. And yet, at that time, the system was also built to help others that was non-Hawaiian. And we used that to also help subsidize the usage of water. So whether it be corporate or not, you gotta get the balance of big and small, you gotta get the balance of good and bad. But we have to step up to the plate, be vigilant and maka'ala where water goes. And the number one thing was always, we never divert water from one ahupua'a to the other. And that's where it should stand, and we should continue to address that under King Kamehameha when he first started. Mahalo.
Well, a semi-correction as long as East Maui was mentioned. East Maui is almost done now. The Commission on Water Resource Management ruled to put water back into 10 streams to 12 others, or maybe it's 12 streams and 10 others to stop the diversions. I'm aware of that because I requested to be an intervener in the East Maui water issue. So it's made this huge jump because A&B and EMI, East Maui Irrigation Corporate, have been stealing the water. Now we're on Moloka'i. Raise your hand if you think Moloka'i Ranch and Monsanto have been good corporate neighbors to all of you. Raise your hand if you think so. That's what I thought. So here we are on Moloka'i, not a single person raised your hand. So what are you guys doing here? And I come as your representative. I wouldn't put up with it. I've heard stories. Some people called me. I was on the phone the other day with someone who said, you know what a huge issue is? Your aquifer. And people are diverting and taking it, and other people are not getting water. This is a battle that's going on the mainland too. Baja California gets no water now because the Colorado River is being diverted. So you guys know, I've been in this district 30 years. Like I said, I've been on my land 20 years. This is what my stream looked like for 19 and a half years. And then my neighbor and I went down there, we ripped out the boards, we put up new boards, we put up one that went up to the diversion. It was built 150 years ago. My stream is running, but I bought my land. There are people that have been there for generations that their livelihood has been ruined. So finally, state agency realized that with the public trust doctrine, which is amazing, we have that in our Constitution. It says that water is a right for people, and Lynn mentioned the ahupua'a, and they take it from East Maui and they give it to Central Maui and all of that. So you guys know what the battle is. If it's because people aren't stepping up to deal with it and say, no, no more, enough already, I will not take this anymore. And again, like I've said, I cannot come from Tuelo out in the jungle and tell you what to do. But I will tell you, you will have a representative that won't put up with what's been going on for years. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to extend a big mahalo to our Senate and House of Representative candidates. English, Michael Tengan, John Bull English, and Mr. Nico and Rico Mania. You got to come with us today. Mahalo, thank you very much for your time. Please stick around. If you guys have more questions, feel free to ask the candidates as time allows. We'd like to take a few minutes to give our mayoral candidates an opportunity to take the stage, please.
The other one's pretty tough too.